Hey guys, what's going on? Clint here. I got a chance to go see Kubo and the Two Strings early, and guys, I am a fan of Laika. I think them as a studio, what they do artistically is really, really cool. They're the studio that did Coraline and Paranorman and the Box Trolls, all three of which had subtly different vibes, and you can sort of chart the growth as a studio as you watch those movies from Coraline to Paranorman to the Box Trolls. And I think Kubo and the Two Strings is another really cool step for them as an animation house. You know, if it's a Laika movie, it's going to be gorgeous and it's going to be fun to look at. And it's gonna tug on your heartstrings. And Kubo and the Two Strings is no different. It's just chock full of the feels, and it's really fun to look at, and it's a really interesting movie to watch. So Kubo is a story of this young boy who is sort of gifted with some sort of mysterious magic. He does this really cool thing where he plays basically like a three-stringed lute, and then like gives life to these sheets of paper around him and tells these fascinating heroic stories in the little town square. And then he ends up having to go on this adventure to sort of reclaim his father's armor, and by doing that has to save himself from his grandfather and his aunts who are sort of hunting him for various reasons. And so for me, looking at a Laika movie, and I feel like you can do this with all of their work, you know, there's the visuals part, there's the artistic part. The look of the movie sort of thematically works with the story of the movie as well, because he makes these great, amazing things out of these sheets of paper, and so the look of it has sort of the texture of construction paper, and it's a really interesting look for a movie. Now, when we get to the story, this is as straight ahead a hero's journey story that you could possibly get. It's the same stuff going all the way back to Odysseus and Hercules. You know, it's about a hero who is tested against often like mystical, sort of otherworldly, supernatural powers, and then him coming out the other side for better or for worse. So in that regard, this for a Laika movie is the morals that they're communicating aren't couched in anything else. It's not couched in, like for Paranorman, for example, it's not couched in the story of like this misfit kid and then he has to, there's a hero's journey embedded in sort of that iconography. This is just straight up a hero's journey. But what this movie ends up being about, it ends up being about family and legacy, and it's about this kid sort of trying to live up to his mother and father and sort of honoring their memory. There's a lot of imagery about sort of ancestry and sort of who you are and what that means for who you are. And that's where it really gets you in the feels. So there's a lot of really interesting things that it has to say about that, couched in this hero's journey. The one thing that I will say that Laika, 90% of Laika's movies I adore. I usually adore like the first 90% of the movie. And then by the time we get to the end, when they try to tie it all up with what this movie is really about and sort of the moral of the story, usually they just sort of come out and just scream it. In the case of Paranorman, it was literally a witch yelling at the end of the movie. And Kubo has a similar thing like that. There's a confrontation at the end and it's like, this is what the movie is about. And that last little 10% kind of lost me a little bit because it seemed less connected to the story that we just watched than even Paranorman's did. But it wasn't a bad moral that they came around to by the end. It wasn't something that I thought was sort of inappropriate for the story that we had just watched. It's just kind of tangentially connected instead of like really directly connected. So it didn't hurt really anything. I think this is going to be another real big success story for Laika in terms of just, like I said, creatively, the art of it, the look of it, works thematically with the story that they're telling. So the whole movie is pulling all in the same direction, and it really works. It really does. The end it doesn't pay off as big as maybe you'd like it to, but the journey itself is really, really worth it. There is one extra thing. This movie does, as opposed to the other Laika movies, it does feel like it's leaning more on computer-generated animation than just puppetry. It seems that way watching it, but then the more you hear about their workflow and how they do the stop motion and the puppetry, and it is incredible. These guys are doing incredibly interesting things with CG and puppetry and melding them together and in ways that you wouldn't even figure out. Like obviously there's a ton of water in this movie. Obviously they're not going to puppeteer water, you know, that's CG, but everything else is photographed stop motion and in just this fascinating way. I'd go find pieces that have been written about their workflow. It's fascinating. All right, everybody, that's what I thought about Kubo and the Two Strings. Go check it out for yourselves. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. Also, let me know what your favorite Leica movie is to date. There's Coraline, there's Paranorman, there's the Box Trolls. They're all really cool. Let me know which one is your favorite and why down in the comments. Click like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time right here on CineFix. You can't compare this to Pixar, and I don't even know how to even bring that up. Yeah. Maybe this is what I'll be saying over me tacking the thing to the board. Is that what's happening right now?